So today's guest went from creating a couple of very cool foodie shows on YouTube to now owning two very cool barbecue houses in New York. Vegetarians beware and carnivores eat first before listening. This episode is one with the lot.
Welcome to the Small Business Big Marketing Show, where successful small business owners share their secrets to take your marketing to the next level. Now here's your host, Tim Reid.
G'day listeners, and welcome back to another episode of Australia's #1 marketing show. I am your host, Timbo Reid. But you, so much more importantly, are a motivated small business owner ready to crank out some great marketing. And that's what we do around here. This show exists to provide you with marketing ideas, insights, tips, tricks, and motivation to build that little baby of yours into whatever you want it to be. So I'm excited to bring you this show and each and every episode of the Small Business Big Marketing Show. Now, my interview today goes for an extended period of time. So I'm not going to do a listener question. I'm not going to share some listener feedback because there is marketing gold dripping from this chat I had with foodie, restaurateur, New York kind of guy, Daniel Delaney. I'll introduce him in a minute, but first, a word from our sponsors.
Small Business Big Marketing with Tim Reid. smallbusinessbigmarketing.com.
Now, guys, you know this show is made possible by the good folk at Net Registry and the good guys at 99 Designs. So if you'll allow me a minute to indulge myself and share with you a couple of ways to help you get your marketing underway, which allows you to focus on your business. Number one, 99 Designs. It's a design competition website, and it's brilliant. It's got a 100% money-back guarantee. So the downside is there isn't one. You post your brief for whatever you want designed. You get logo designs from $299, social media pages from $149, clothing and merch, hey, bit of merch from $189, and the list goes on. You post a 7-day design contest. They help you with the brief. Dozens of designers compete from all around the world to deliver you the best design, and then you award the prize money. It's that easy. And if you go to 99designs.com/SBBM, you will get a $99 Power Pack upgrade, which means your competition will go to the top of the page and you're likely to get 185% more designs responding to you. You got to love that. 99designs.com/SBBM. And the other one, just real quickly, because I can smell the barbecue from the distance. Oh, I got to tell you, Daniel's brisket. We don't have a lot of brisket in Australia. You just need to look at the photos of it. It's amazing. But that's only a part of his story. More on him in a minute. Net Registry, get your online marketing sorted. Anything, team? Any part of your online marketing that's freaking you out, Net Registry will sort it out. From getting the right domain name, that's important, to getting good website hosting, that's important, to getting a website designed or developed and found on Google, that's important too. And that's what the guys at Net Registry do. So head over to netregistry.com.au and tell them Timbo sent you. Okay, so this Daniel Delaney fellow, he's a long-time listener of my show, and he hit me up a few months ago and said, "Hey, Timbo, I'd like to come on your show." And I checked him out, and he's just one smart New York cookie. He had a couple of really good shows on YouTube, which we talk about, which led him to becoming the restaurateur that he is. The shows, one was called Vendor TV, where he went around America and reviewed food vans. You know, like those guys that sell tacos or really cool food out the back of their vans. And he had another show called What's This Food, where he went and tried foods that he'd never even heard of before. Both those shows, very successful YouTube shows, and led to him building a really strong personal brand. And as a result, he then decided to start a very cool restaurant in Brooklyn and another one on the New York skyline, which is that bridge, with all the grass and parklands and all that type of stuff. He's got a pop-up store on that. We talk a lot about that and how his YouTube days helped him to get where he was. And he's just a smart marketer. Seth Godin's son, is his number one customer. He knows Gary Vaynerchuk. This man is connected. Hey, if you do like what Daniel has to share, tell him. Tell him you heard him on the Small Business Big Marketing Show. You can find him on Twitter at Daniel, D-A-N-I-E-L, Delaney, D-E-L-A-N-E-Y. That would be a wonderful thing. I started off by asking Daniel what was his favourite food and why.
I love eating food, but I love the context around food. So if I can't give you one thing, that's impossible, but I can tell you I'm a big, every Sunday, ritually, I get dim sum. I love dim sum. So that'll be my Sunday breakfast. But if someone said you have an opportunity to have maybe one bite, I would either go to this wonderful pizzeria in Brooklyn, which is called DeFara's. And when you visit New York next, and anybody that's listening that visits New York, there's no other slice of pizza that you need to have in your life, or certainly in New York, besides this. So it's called DeFara's.
Wow.
Or there's a wonderful fried chicken place in New Orleans called Willie Mae's Scotch House, which is an amazing story in and to itself. But the fried chicken and the whole culture around the place is just absolutely touching and wildly delicious.
What do you mean touching?
This is a story of a woman that has operated this whole business for her life. She's in her 90s now. Her granddaughter had pitched in, but when Katrina came, the place was leveled, completely decimated. And some of the folks, there's a great organization called the Southern Foodways Alliance, founded and kind of head by this wonderful gentleman named John T. Edge, who's always on Food Network and such. And they banded together, raised funds, and helped them rebuild the restaurant after Katrina, just because the contribution to New Orleans food culture that Miss Willie Mae Seton made it's so tremendous. She's such a staple in the culture. Yeah.
Dan, this is such an interesting interview that we're about to have, and what I love about what you've done, and it's hard because this is audio, and so much of what you've done and do is visual. But when you approached me to come on this show, and I started looking at your website and the businesses that you've got, it was like, wow, you really package up the concept of eating, in your case, brisket, because that's kind of what you sell, in such an engaging, emotional way. And your marketing and your branding is beautiful. So let's start from the start, because you didn't just open up a restaurant, a barbecue house in Brooklyn, did you?
No. So everything is, as I was saying, there's this huge domino effect. Everything is very connected. It started for me in college. I did a fine art degree, one in design and multimedia, and I needed a thesis to graduate, and I did that on mobile food vending and sort of the immigrant side of mobile food vending and how potentially these mobile entrepreneurs could support themselves through better design. Mm-hmm. And then after that, I didn't know what to do. I thought I was going to try and work at Facebook or something in the tech space, but just plans didn't pan out, and I found myself scratching my head and decided that what I would do was, I don't know if you know Zay Frank, but I was, a big follower of his at the time. And
who is he?
Just, I think it's a little bit dated now, but I think that he is, when somebody says to me, point to one of the most creative thinkers on the internet, this is the person I go to. When podcasting wasn't even a thing, he created this show. He did it every day for a year, and he was one of the most engaging individuals. I mean, he did these fun projects. Like one that just comes to mind was Earth Sandwich. He said, find through this community that he built. He said, find another person that watches the show at your exact inverse latitude and longitude, and put a piece of bread down on the globe, on the Earth, and take a photo. And he had just the most amazing participatory activities, really worth checking it. But he speaks at TED and all these things now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. I interviewed one of the TEDx curators last week. Is Zay Frank? Is that Z-A-Y?
No, it's just Z-E.
Yeah.
Frank. Yeah.
Yeah, we're pretty weird over here the way we pronounce stuff. Or maybe you are. I don't know.
Maybe.
Okay, so he inspired you?
Definitely. And, and then I became friendly with Gary Vaynerchuk, and I was hanging out at Wine Library.
You are dropping names now.
Right, I know, right?
Gary V. Are you going to introduce me to Gary V?
Do you not know him?
Oh, mate. You get him on this show, I will come to your smokehouse and give you a very unusual hug.
Of course. I mean, I would love to make that introduction. So, I started hanging out with him in New Jersey when he was kind of podcasting with Wine Library.
Wow.
I think he was very influenced by Zay Frank to get started. Mm-hmm. And I became more and more interested in podcasting, and then also like some of the folks like Kevin Rose and such in Revision 3. And so I was very inspired by what they were doing. I really liked it and decided that, well, and this is an interesting thought. We're at the point in technology, and we were in 2009 as well, where there's no reason that anybody cannot produce the quality of content that you see on television or greater. Like
hallelujah.
Like, technology is so inexpensive. And so I called upon, I had all these people that I went to school with that had great degrees in design and film and this and that. And I just said, hey, let's make a show about food trucks. And it just coincided with the fact that in the United States at that time, it started to bubble. People were excited about food trucks, very much thanks to one in Los Angeles called Kogi and one in New York called the Waffles and Dingus. And these two food trucks became really popular on social media, and they, I think, very much sparked a little bit of a renaissance.
I'm going to just hold that thought there, because I think food trucks, I'd love to speak to a food truck vendor, and I will. In fact, I was in LA a few months ago, and boy, oh boy, we have so many rules and regulations around food trucks in Australia, Daniel, that they're very hard things. That we don't have as many over here. But just talking about food trucks, and tell me, you've got more experience with them than I have, that they just do one thing really well, don't they? And therefore, they become known for that thing. It's just such a great marketing ploy.
Yeah, I think that as we look through the history of food, this is not a new idea. The idea of doing one thing great is, I mean, it's like the tuck shops, right? Mm. Or it's like the pizza parlor. I mean, this model of doing one thing really well, I think it comes in ebbs and flows. That it is barbecue, it is fried chicken, and then we go through a period of time where we're much more interested in diversity, and then we focus again. And I think that right now, at least in New York, we're very much focusing again. We're becoming very specific about what we do. Yeah. But I think food trucks became really popular because it was, again, right place at the right time. It was, in the United States and I guess globally, there was the recession that was hitting, and people wanted not only food that was comforting, which food trucks often provided, but they wanted to be able to dine out well without spending so much money. And so it was the perfect marriage at that moment.
And Twitter kind of played a role too, didn't it?
I mean, absolutely. The idea of being able to communicate very quickly, the idea of being able to communicate mobily on the fly. It was this great alchemy, I think.
Okay, so you started a YouTube channel called Vendor TV, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I started, I don't know if I throw out the word blip.tv, if that makes sense to you, but I started doing the show there and really just focusing on iTunes. And eventually the show, it got picked up by a company that got bought by YouTube, and they helped us at that time with some of the distribution, and they helped us make enough money to be able to keep the show going. And it was a company called Next New Networks, and it got acquired by YouTube. Yeah,
because I was watching Vendor TV the other day, and listeners, it's Vendor VENDR TV. If you go to YouTube and look at it, and I think, wow, your production quality, and is really high. I mean, this is not shot on your iPhone and quickly uploaded. I mean, there's angles, there's cuts, there's all sorts of stuff going on there. So you were traveling around the States with some friends, and you had some funding by a production company to make this vendor TV happen, yeah?
You know, in the beginning it was bootstrapped. We just started doing it. I had the good fortune of going to a university that gives their alumni access to technology for free for life, and so I took advantage of that, and I got, you know, some nice cameras and wireless lavs and this and that, and just went out and we just started doing it in New York with no real game plan, just like, can we do this? Doing it is sometimes so important, you know, refine later, do now. And so we just did it, and it sucked. It was horrible. But we did it again, and it got a little better and a little better, and we got more efficient. We didn't need to bring 8 people; we could bring 3 people. Yeah. We just learned how to become a little bit more lean and agile, and then the show, you know, it was starting to get some traction. It was also getting traction because I was can I say I was being a whore? You know, I was like sending it out to the Times and this, now, please, you know, wouldn't this be a great thing to write about? And, you know, whoever I thought could potentially be interested. I got Serious Eats at the time was basically posting each of the videos. So it was becoming attractive to Next New Networks to start to help us because there was some viewership. And that really, I mean, over time, those videos started to grow. Actually, all the stuff that's on YouTube it's very new to YouTube. The videos
I was going to say, because the numbers, and I kind of always take comfort in low numbers because it means that it's like, you know, it shouldn't scare people off from thinking, oh, they have to get millions of views. Your views on YouTube are low, but it was obviously available elsewhere.
Well, that's a very small, disinteresting, or not very interesting point. We had to remove the content and put it back up recently due to just licensing.
Bummer.
Yeah. So, but I will say that at the time that we were producing the show, the vast majority of our viewership was through iTunes. It was not through YouTube at all.
Right. So, Daniel, vendor TV. What did you hope? Was there a commercial outcome, or were you creating art at this point?
No, I'm only now starting to look at the commercial side of anything, but I don't think it was art. I was looking for a fun thing to do, you know, and it was much better than sitting behind a desk. I was traveling through all these states with friends. We rented convertibles, so, you know, it was just driving, and Nice. It was fun. It was very intense. You know, we would get to a city. I remember one day in Portland, Oregon, we got up at like 6 a.m. and filmed a breakfast place, and we filmed 5 episodes in one day. And actually, it was fun. At that point, I stopped changing. I bought all of the same clothes so that we could do pickup shots on other days, and I would never have to worry about the uniform matching. So I would wear the same thing every day just to be efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Zuckerberg, I just read an article about Zuckerberg. He wears the same clothes every day, so it's one less decision he has to make. There you go.
It makes sense.
Yeah, totally. So Daniel, Vendor TV, 29 episodes in, it's finished. You've moved on. What was the reason for moving on, and what did you do next?
Well, we produced probably about 140 episodes or so.
Did you?
So yeah, there were many more. I don't know why they're not showing up, but we produced more.
Yep.
And why did we move on? I think that I like starting things. I like trying things, and I think that we got to a point where my camera crew needed to start to make it. You know, he wanted to have a job, and but it was great. And for me, it helped me solidify myself in the food community. People really liked the show; they were excited about it. And so then it's totally integral to the rest of the story. So. By way of doing this, I started to do some consulting, and there's a tech company called Squarespace, and I became very close with them, and they asked me to basically organize their events at South by Southwest for 2 years, and we put on this massive takeover of a street corner, and I rented, because of this food truck knowledge, rented a food truck and operated it. And we brought on all of these wonderful, Franklin Barbecue and Paul Key, who won Top Chef, and all these really great people in Austin to come and sort of give away food from this truck. But the byproduct of this was that I had to go live in Austin. So for 2 years, I had lived for about a month and a half, 2 months in Austin while I was preparing this truck for South by Southwest. Wow. And doing that really I was eating a lot of barbecue, and I really fell in love with it. I fell in love with the culture. And so it was sort of that's sort of the next domino, and it allowed me to I think get a real taste for barbecue, and learn that again, I never thought it would be a commercial thing, but I thought it would be a great project to try and do.
Up until this time, clearly you'd been a vegetarian.
Right. Oh God.
Oh no.
No.
Oh no.
So
what's interesting at this point is that you're a young bloke who decided to go, okay, well, this new modern world of marketing, as you said, allows us to produce quality TV quality content, no matter who we are. You're inspired by someone like Gary Vaynerchuk. You go and start Vendor TV as a no one in the food industry in New York. The next thing you do, you lean into this concept. You make it your own. You make engaging, entertaining content. Let's not shirk away from the fact that you love the camera, you love a chat, you love informing and entertaining people. The next thing you know, you start to become a person of influence in an industry in which you're interested. This is how it works.
How about that?
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh, and I just want listeners to really understand this point. You get it. Previous guests like Melissa Maker of Clean My Space get it. If you just put yourself out there and either share your opinions or facilitate others to share their opinions, which is what you were doing with food truck vendors, good stuff happens, huh?
Absolutely. I mean, the way you phrase it is very inspiring. The way I would say it is that people are really hungry. They're really hungry to like, media is really hungry for stories, and people are really hungry to learn. And I say it this way because when I think that when I look at it in a very tangible sense, it's really not that hard. Like it's, if people are not talking about you, I think that you're doing something wrong, because it's like the barriers are really low right now. Like it's people are so hungry for information, and even though it's noisy, the space that we're in is very noisy. A lot of people are talking. With a little elbow grease, I don't think that it's very difficult to push yourself forward.
Do you know, I find that really interesting coming from you, who's sitting there over in New York and go to other parts of America. I say this from my keynotes from stage when in Australia, because the bar really is low here. Any Australian or New Zealand person listening to this, the bar's low. Do what we are talking about right now and you will win. In America, it is crowded. You guys are ahead of the game. There are a lot more of you doing a lot more of this, but it doesn't. I love the fact that you are still upbeat and saying that there's still an opportunity to do what essentially is helpful marketing.
Absolutely. And the other phrase, I don't know if you ever read the book by Marty Neumeier called Zag, but I think that one of the most important. We were a counter service restaurant. You'd walk up and get your food. And at a certain point, we saw other barbecue places that were opening that were doing the same thing. And we switched to be a table service restaurant. Huh. And we said, okay, how do we build the most romantic barbecue place, a place that you want to go on a date? But, the point is, the only thing that you can't do is stand still. If you're not moving, you're sinking. So you just have to be dynamic.
Correct.
Can't stop.
Okay, so Daniel, moving on from Vendor TV, what was next? You did this work at South by Southwest. Obviously, that gets you big. Again, that builds your exposure, your personal brand. Did you then start What's This Food, or when did that begin?
It was all happening. There was definitely an overlap. I remember working in South by Southwest, and then also every morning waking up early and filming What's This Food. I was doing a lot of things at once. I was juggling a lot. So
explain What's This Food?
Well, I guess the only idea that never made sense to me was just getting a job. And I like exploiting what I'm doing, which means if I can also derive learning out of making money, or if I can, for example, build credibility by making money, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. So What's This Food was, I just wanted to learn more about cooking, and I wanted to learn more about ingredients. And I think it actually truthfully came out of a desire to build at that time, as I think about it, it's all going back. In college, I kind of designed a prototype for a thing called Recipo. And the idea was that this is obviously pre-iPhone and all these, but it was like a little, like a Casio device where you could go into the grocery store and type in cherimoya, or you could type in kiwano melon or something like this. Yeah. And it would tell you what that is and show you how to cook with it. And this was always an idea that I had in the back of my head. What's This Food was how I knew how to actualize that. And so, yeah, and it was just, sometimes when you have these ideas for too long, you have to do something about them. And that was that. What's interesting about this, I also wanted to exercise making things more. I like producing things, and I don't like not moving. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to set some constraints. The constraints were I would produce a video every single day. And I started on January 1st, and I would do it 7 days a week. And each video had to be an ingredient that I didn't know anything about. And I would source the ingredient, learn about it, create a recipe just in one day, create a recipe, film the episode, edit the episode, and post it in one day.
Wow.
And then the other thing that's really fun about this is that I also thought this would be a great opportunity to try alternate sources of generating revenue. So instead of placing ads on platforms like, let's say platforms that are going to display advertising in the pre-roll or at the end of the video, I thought, well, what if we do more integrated advertising? And so I sold every single day of the year. I sold advertising against the content manually.
I was wondering what those little spots were, because they were just to explain. If you watch an episode of What's This Food on Daniel's YouTube channel, you the first thing you do is a live read to camera of an obscure brand that you probably never heard of.
Yeah.
And so but it's relevant to what you're talking about in that episode.
Yeah. So in between filming and shooting, I was also picking up the phone and selling, these ads against each day's videos.
What's it like surviving on an hour's sleep?
Well, my girlfriend at the time was committed to this. She quit her job. We just did this together. It was a fun, but also harrowing experience.
So that sponsorship thing. So interesting. So that worked. You were ringing people saying, "Hey, listen, I'm about to do. I'm looking at one. How to make a pumpkin pie. What are pumpkins?
Sure.
Who did you approach for that episode? How did you identify them, and what did you charge them?
So we basically just trawled the internet trying to find artisanal food brands that we would reach out to. And we definitely were sending out sort of like batch emails, sort of templated emails.
So who'd buy boom, boom?
Just to see if there would be any interested leads. What we ultimately, there had been this, I'm forgetting what it's called, but there was this e-commerce platform that was, again, another little nugget in my mind, an e-commerce platform that sold like unique items, and they would do a limited quantity of them. So they would have 100 items, and the first item would be $1, and the second item would be $2, and the third would be $3. So maybe these were like it was like a custom Lego or a limited edition painting, and the guy would produce 100 paintings, and so if you bought the 100th painting, it would be $100. But if you bought the second painting, you'd pay $2 for it. And so there's an equation, which is that you take the highest number and you multiply it by the highest number minus 1, and you divide by 2, and that tells you what the gross is if you sell it all.
Right.
And so I applied that to a calendar. So we did, the first day was $1, second was $2, third was $3, and the last day, like Christmas or rather January 30th, would be $365.
That's clever because your audience is building. Oh,
exactly.
Mind you,
exactly.
any of those prices are cheap, but
right.
But I get the principle.
That was the idea. I don't know that it was I don't know, looking back at it, that any of these ideas were the best ideas, but I built a lot of muscles doing this. This is, regardless, like I'm clearly not doing that anymore, but I can extrapolate a lot of the learnings towards what I'm doing now, and ultimately that's what is the most valuable, I think.
So 365 episodes later of What's This Food?
Well, I made it through about 260, and it didn't. I couldn't do it. I tried, but I'm proud of 260 something.
So you should be.
Yeah.
Did an opportunity come knocking?
I think that I was getting to this point now where things are overlapping, and I started to become more interested in barbecue. And so, at a certain point, I think I had to make a decision, and I decided not to continue doing the show because I wanted to try and pursue this. I also, it did get increasingly tiring to try and sell these, there was no automation to the sales. Yeah. And I think that got a little tiring.
Good. But I love that. The fact that you strengthened some muscles. I love that idea where you got good at stuff, you built some confidence, and great for recognizing it's time to move on. I think often, many business owners may fear moving on. They're kind of like, oh, well, it's kind of working. If I move on, it might, the next thing might not work at all. So I think there's courage in that. You had a pivotal moment then, Daniel, in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Did I jump too far ahead? But I do love this moment.
What is the moment?
Well, when you're at a festival and you met this fellow Michael Stern, and he introduced. Yeah, go on.
Sure.
Have I triggered that?
Right. Yeah, I get it. Michael. He's a gem. Really great guy. So Michael, as a plug for him, is the author of a series of books called Road Food, which if anybody travels to the States, it's a worthy read, and it kind of shows you all of the little offbeat diners and roadside stands in the country that produce really great food. And he and his wife traveled the country chronicling all of this, and he was definitely an inspiration. He asked me to come down to New Orleans to film an episode of Vendor TV, and about a festival that he was having in the French Quarter in New Orleans. While I was there, I met a gentleman named Wayne Miller from Louis Miller Barbecue in Taylor, Texas, who drove his smoker to New Orleans for this festival to cook brisket. And I tried his brisket, and my mind was blown entirely. It was really like nothing I had ever eaten in my life. I've created I've said it must be like a blind person seeing or something. It's just you didn't know that your mouth could do such things.
Wow.
So I found that very inspiring, and that definitely was part of the encouragement to, hey, let me start cooking barbecue. So back in Brooklyn, I started a barbecue supper club. All these little projects. Jeez. Started a barbecue.
Did you not? When was the point? Because now we're getting to the pointy end where we're going to talk about your current businesses. But did you not purchase, I don't know what you call them, a smoker, a large barbecue that you towed back from Texas to New York illegally?
Yeah, I did. That was definitely after I had been tinkering with barbecue for a while.
Okay, so you got it. I'm going to get serious now, and I'm going to buy the big stuff.
So I was down in Austin and talked to a friend of mine that owns a barbecue place down there, and he hooked it up. He said, if you think you want to do this, and he said, here, take one of my smokers, and brought that up to New York without any game plan whatsoever. Put it in my very generous family's backyard, and and didn't know what to do.
Right.
I knew a lot of things. I knew that cooking on it would be illegal. I knew that I didn't have a kitchen that was commercial, nor did I have the money to basically start that. Nor did I have the money to buy meat. Nor did I have an audience that was going to eat the hundreds and hundreds of pounds of brisket that one load on the smoker produces.
But what you did know is that the brisket that Wayne cooked was mind-blowing, and you needed to somehow get close to recreating that.
Exactly. And so the start of my business it starts now with this project that we called Brisket Lab. And Brisket Lab was a way that I would solve all of those bullets, meaning, cook without a kitchen and be illegal and not have to have money and whatever. And so what we did was we basically pre-sold barbecue online, meaning that we sold people sort of basically like a gift certificate, if you will, or really a currency. Maybe it's more like Bitcoin. We sold people this alternate currency, which was brisket. And we sold a lot of it. We sold about, the original go was around 3,600 pounds of brisket in just about 48 hours. And we sold that at $25 a pound.
And no one had tried it?
No one had tried it. It was sight unseen.
What?
We didn't tell people where they'd be able to redeem it. We provided no dates. It was all completely based upon blind faith. But it was also...
Where did the faith come from? Is this because you had a strong enough followership as a result of Vendor TV and What's This Food? Or what am I missing there? Because... that's a lot of brisket to sell sight unseen, don't know the date, don't know. All we know is that it's brisket and it's got a price to it.
Yeah, it's remarkable. I really don't think that the crossover was that tremendous. There is another project. For a while I did this thing called Eater's Digest, which was a directory of food events in New York City, and that definitely built me some cred at a local level.
Is that a book, online, an app?
It was like just an email, like a MailChimp driven email marketing list about where to go for fun food events in the city. And I did that for a while.
So that's interesting. I'm not going to let you run away from that, because that sounds like everything you've done. I think what I'm starting to get clear on is that you are building these little, sometimes big, sometimes little audiences who develop trust, who develop familiarity with you. And at some point, you kind of thinking, oh, well, you've gone from making art to making, it's that Steve Jobs thing, that wonderful intersection between art and design. That's kind of where you found that in food. So just quickly, your MailChimp, you started to build a list of people who would be interested in what? Where to eat in New York?
I like function. I like things that are utilitarian. There was no one place on the internet where you could learn about all of the events that are happening that are for like foodies in New York City at once. You would have to go to all of the different websites and kind of maybe go to 10 different websites and read all the descriptions. It wasn't very friendly for the consumer. So did you
scrape those sites, so to speak?
We scraped them. We populated them into a very no graphics, no advertising. It was just a very simple black and white text only email that we put out. Very very driven towards utility.
I'm getting it now. So another group of people who look forward to the next thing Daniel Delaney is going to deliver. So you sell out of your brisket, sight unseen.
I think that if I could, this thing is actually probably the most valuable thing for somebody that's in the There's actually a lot of value here, so I would love to just drill in real quickly about how we did this.
Drill, Dan, drill.
So the first thing was that I first saw that I needed to. I didn't want to just announce this without being able to capture credit cards, or rather, I didn't want to. I wasn't ready to capture credit cards, but I wanted to announce this. That's the better way of saying.
Announce what? Announce the sale of the brisket.
That we were going to do Brisket Lab. That it was coming. And I thought that, and so what I did was I used a platform that I love, and actually I have a new project that I'm doing, and I just used it again today. But the platform is called LaunchRock. And it's a coming soon platform. So you can build a micro website, like a little website, a splash page, if you will, that says, we're about to do this. Put your email address in if you're interested, and we'll let you know when we're ready. And LaunchRock also has a nice mechanism in it, which is that after somebody subscribes, you can incentivize people to share socially, and the person and you can keep track of those referrals.
Nice.
And so you can reward the person.
I like that.
So we built it was a very cryptic copy that we wrote. It says something to the effect of, in the summer of 2012, we're launching an underground smoked meat guild, and we're looking for hungry carnivores with distinguished palates to help us steer our brisket towards the motherland, and blah, 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 blah. And I had no images. I had nothing. So I basically just made it all kind of funky text, because I really had no assets. And so we put this up, and then I sent it out on my list, which wasn't giant. And then I sent like the cryptic messages to Eater.com and the New York Times and all the different publications.
Oh, love it. Love it. Building up a little bit of suspense.
Exactly. And so they said, what is this thing? Some sort of weird underground smoked meat, something is going on. And so they started publishing it, and we had around 8,000 people drop in their email address to be notified when we were going to launch this.
Oh, yeah. I'm looking at LaunchRock now. Does LaunchRock allow you to do that? Well, obviously, it captures their email address.
That's all it's for, yeah.
Tell me when it's out. Tell me when it's on.
Yeah, exactly. It's great. Yeah. It's great. So built this list. We were going to use Kickstarter originally, and I felt that it would be damaging to the brand to go that route. So we didn't use Kickstarter, and instead we built our own kind of e-commerce platform, which was really, really focused around motivating people to make a purchase. And so the way that we did this, we still had no assets or graphics or logos, but the way that we did this is that on the front in very large, at the top in very large type, it says Brisket Lab has 3,500 pounds left. And every time somebody made a purchase, that number went down.
Nice.
So when people went to the website, they're like kind of just reading about it, and they're watching this number like tick down pretty aggressively.
A pretty practical question here, Dan, but there'll be a lot of listeners. You're a tech guy. You're tech savvy. There's a lot of listeners who have ideas, but how are you getting these websites built? Like, for example, this little e-commerce platform that you're talking about. Do you have like a team around the corner? Do you go on to a 99 Designs or an Elance? What do you do? Just quickly. So,
I mean, for that specifically, I designed what the page would look like just in Illustrator, and then I had we used the e-commerce platform called Shopify, and we basically hacked it a little bit and created a skin that would live on top of it.
Gotcha. That
felt very, very unique and very custom. A friend of mine is a developer at Tumblr, and he helped me code it. So, this is all very bootstrapped, but I don't think that this is, if you're able to give someone the direction, I don't think that this is something that you couldn't, find someone on Odesk to do. Yeah.
Correct.
We also created, and this was a really helpful thing, we created what we called the Q-culator. So we were concerned that people would buy a half a pound or 1 pound, the minimum. And I wanted to take more advantage of those sales. So we basically created a metric, a little mechanism that said, I want to go to 3 events and bring 4 friends. And it multiplied and said, okay, you should buy 15 pounds.
Nice.
And there's a giant buy button. And so we saw as a result, I think largely that we saw the average being a 4 pound purchase. So people were basically buying $100 of meat per person.
See, what you've done there, marketing lesson, business lesson, make it easy for people to buy from you. Make it easy. And I too many businesses, I hope your restaurants allow people to split bills. I went to a restaurant on Sunday and we couldn't split the bill, and it's just like, really? It's just making it hard to buy. Anyway, that's a grouch. We'll move on from that. Okay, I'm conscious of time here, Dan, but mind you, it's a wonderful discussion.
Sure.
You sell out of all this brisket. Brisket Lab's a success. Mm-hmm. What did you do next? You were cooking. You've got Brisket Town and you got Smoke Line. These are your two current businesses. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, the restaurant, we call it Delaney BBQ. We have two locations. One is our actual restaurant called Brisketown. And then we also have a food cart, which is seasonal. And it's in a park called the High Line in Manhattan. It's an above ground park. And that operates during the warmer weather.
That's Smoke Line.
Correct, yes.
Now that park, let's talk about that, because that's an amazing park. Again, we've got lots of listeners over the other side of the world. That park was built on an old railway bridge, correct?
Yeah, an elevated train.
How
it's beautiful.
I haven't been there. I've seen photos of it. It looks amazing. So you've got this cart there, and now it makes sense, because I was looking at your Smoke Line Facebook, and it said, we're not open today due to weather. So clearly you couldn't, you're cooking meat and the barbecue wouldn't work or something. Is that right?
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, the thing is, because it's outdoors and it's near the Hudson River. It's just very influenced by weather, and there are days where it doesn't economically make sense to go and open up if it's raining or very windy or something like this. Yeah.
So Brisketown, which is your sit down restaurant, did that open up as a result of Brisket Lab?
It did, very directly. So we were getting toward the end, and we didn't know what the next thing was. And we said, well, let's open up a pop-up restaurant. And so we went back to those people, and we did another fundraiser that same way. This time we sold 4,000 pounds in 24 hours. So it was an even more aggressive sale. And we took that money plus some private investment and built the restaurant. We built the restaurant very quick. I like to move very quickly. We got the lease for the restaurant on October 1st of 2012. And we opened up November 15th, which means next Saturday is our 2-year anniversary.
Okay, let's talk about a recent episode of this show. We talked about taking action, not necessarily moving quickly, but there's something about the way you go about business, Daniel, that is just you move quickly. You tell me about how much are you a considered person? Do you move on gut instinct? Do you get a feeling that just that frightens you so much that is like, if I don't do it, I'll be really annoyed with myself? What goes on in the mind of Daniel Delaney in order to take such swift action? So
I feel like a little, it almost feels arrogant saying this, but I think that through an education in design with a very, very strong focus on critique, I feel like I've built a very strong intuitive side, but there's good judgment to that. So I'm very much driven by a sort of a gut instinct. I prefer to act now and apologize later for most of the things I do. I just like to do it because ultimately, and I think that this is a very important thing to realize, like not everything that we do works. Most of what we do does not work. So
Beautiful.
to spend so much time thinking means that you're not taking action, and you actually might fail at the thing that you're doing. So I think it's best to iterate as quickly as possible all the time, and we do. I mean, now that we're running the business, all of the things that I've learned over the few years are we put them into practice very, very aggressively. Mm-hmm. And I think that everybody that comes to our team is it's a little shocking because it's so abnormal for how most most restaurants run.
Oh, most
for example,
businesses.
We don't use email. We use Asana instead of email.
What's Asana? Sounds like something an Indian meditation temple.
It is. It's the name of a yoga pose, but asana, yeah. But you know, it was created by some of the founders of Facebook, and it replaces email in any organization where collaboration is very important. So I don't. That's a great thing to research. Everyone should check it out. If you have flooded inboxes, which
I'll put that in link in the show notes for sure.
It's amazing. So that's one thing. We change our website usually every 3 months.
Wow.
We overhaul the whole website.
Why?
Because we can always be better.
And like sweeping change, or like Coca-Cola's improved their logo since 1902 ever so slightly, but it still looks like the same logo. Are you talking about that, or?
I mean, they're getting to be smaller changes now, but they're definitely big changes. I mean, we didn't change it a lot in the beginning, and now we change it very frequently. If you went into like the Wayback Wizard on archive.org, you could see how it's changed. But yeah, they're complete overhauls. I use a platform called Crazy Egg, which monitors mouse movement on the website.
Yeah, heat map sort of thing.
Yeah, and heat maps. So that's really helpful. And actually, we got to this point where maybe one of the most robust portions of our business is catering weddings. And so hopefully in the next 48 hours, I'll build a new website for that specifically and launch a...
No longer okay. I want it done in 48. If 72 won't be good enough.
Maybe, but we got to move fast, time is of the essence.
Wow.
Yeah.
Goodness me, Dan. We could go and talk about Brisket Town. Listeners, I really encourage you. Go to DelaneyBBQ.com. I'll put a link in the show notes. But the whole time you've been talking, I've had a page of your website open, Dan, and it's got this piece of brisket. And it's getting towards lunchtime here. So I don't know where I'm going to get it. Brisket's not something we talk about over here. Well, kind of not in any... Certainly not at the depths you guys do. It looks so tasty. So, Dan, what keeps you up at night, mate? You're a highly charged, highly motivated person. When, with all these businesses, all these things that you've got planned, anything that makes you go, oh, geez?
I'll be honest with you. I have a lot of trouble. I think I have a lot of trouble as a leader. Being patient. I find I don't, I think that the way that I think it's sometimes a little bit abnormal for most of the people in the hospitality space. I like to move very fast. And I find it hard sometimes to be able to have the people on my team think the way that I think and move at the speed I want to move at. I do have a virtual assistant now, which has been one of the most amazing things. And actually, she speaks the same language that I speak. We move very quickly together.
How'd you find her?
Through Odesk and just through like a little bit of a rigorous process of just looking through and finding her. But she's amazing.
What was the key to the rigorous process? Because this is a discussion we have a lot inside the forum.
Well, again, the rigorous process was that it was more internalized. I had looked at a bunch of different platforms. I tried Freelancer and Elance and also Odesk. So I had been searching and reviewing a lot of things. She put a lot of, but again, like a lot of the decisions are gut decisions. I actually really loved how she wrote to me. She was really charged, a lot of exclamation points, very charismatic. And that was what made me first want to work with her. Yeah. And then we got on a Skype call and talked for an hour or two, and it felt really good. Right. Hey, but at the same time, you just have to do stuff.
You do? You an autocrat?
A what?
Is it your way or the highway?
No. I'm really democratic about how we work, as long as people can justify and explain themselves. I love being challenged, but I just ask that there's logic behind whatever people are talking about. But no, I don't. I think that I'm very weak. I think that my chef and my managers are much smarter than me. They're much better at what they do than I am. I'm very aesthetically driven, and I care a lot about the reasoning behind decisions.
You are a highly creative soul. You have got ideas popping left, right, and centre that up until now, you haven't mentioned a lot of other people. Maybe there are. Well, you have. You kind of mentioned the Gary V's of the world and the Z Franks and that. But you are someone who has the ideas and implements the ideas and takes the action. I'm a little bit scared that you're going to get pulled out of the business at some point and become a manager. And I think that would be a pity. Am I right, or am I right about the fact that you may be pulled out of the business at some point?
I'm very. It took me a while. It took me a year and a half to realize that I shouldn't it was actually inspired very much by one of your episodes, that I need to not do the things that I shouldn't be doing. And I tried to juggle everything in the beginning, and I'm very interested in doing what I excel at this point, and not doing the things that I don't excel at. So, and that's a hard thing to, especially in the restaurant industry, because margins are so small. So people are always trying to figure out ways to be more frugal. But, being efficient and playing to your strengths is so important in this space. And I'm not a bookkeeper, and I don't want to be, be the day-to-day manager. That's not where I am.
You're not micro. You're not micro.
No. Yeah.
One last question, Dan. It's such a great discussion. I interviewed about 100 episodes ago, and I want to talk to you about the marketing of how you go about marketing Brisket Town and Smokeline. I think I know. I interviewed a guy, Tommy Nicolosi. He won the best sandwich in America on that Fox show, TV, Food Nation. And he just had a little shop at Philadelphia train station. And he made what looked like the best roast pork provolone and broccoli sandwich that I had ever not eaten. And when I spoke to Tommy, it was all about the quality. It was just all about the quality, the passion he had, particularly for the roast pork. Okay, and he talked at length about how he got that pork to where it was, and that's why he won Best Sandwich in America. I'm guessing your businesses rely on just an incredibly high-quality product, and all our businesses should. And as a result, that gets talked about, and you don't do a lot of external marketing. True or false?
False.
Damn! What do you do? So you don't do a quality product?
No, I mean, I think, I truly believe that what we produce is wonderful. I think that it's some of the best barbecue that you'll get in the United States.
Yeah, but you're biased.
Yeah, but I'm too critical of myself to not I'll call a spade a spade. I think it's really wonderful, and but I think that no, I don't agree with that. I think
it's too competitive not to continually put your name out there.
It's so competitive, and I think that there are places that have been around for a while or live in ecosystems where they can bubble up, they can become animalities, and they can somehow self-propel and self-perpetuate. I'm very focused on how we market ourselves. We spend a lot of money on paid advertising. I focus on
online or off?
Online, yeah, only online. Oh no, some analog things, but very very little. I don't. I don't know how to measure it.
Okay, Google AdWords and Facebook type paid advertising, or Yelp, or what?
Yeah, mostly Google and Facebook. But I mean, I have a team that does SEO for me, and I have that's not as tangible as paid per click ads, but I have somebody that now actually hired today that will be a resident photographer taking photographs and sending them to the VA to put up on social media every day.
Wow.
So, I would never want to tell someone that's getting into this space that it's just about making a great product and then sit back, because I think it.
I went to a burger joint in Queenstown in New Zealand called Ferg Burger. I talked about it on a recent episode. This guy, it's not unusual for them to have a 200-300 metre line. I'm guessing, and I haven't got to the owner yet, I will, he wouldn't spend a cent on paid advertising. So I kind of thought
but that's one in how many thousands and tens of thousands of businesses?
Totally. But I got sucked in by a photo I saw on your site of this wonderful queue lining up outside what must have been your pop-up store.
Sure, yeah.
So no, I absolutely hear you, and thank you for correcting me on it. Do you social media? I'm interested. That's interesting that you pay a photographer for your Instagram and getting stuff up on social media. I think that's really clever.
I just maybe I'll get better as an operator, but I found it very difficult to motivate my managers to be. I found it very difficult for me to motivate my chef while he's busy cooking to pull out a phone and snap a photograph. So I tried. We had an internal program where everybody at the restaurant had the password, and we would create incentive and prizes for the person that posted the best photo. I just tried stomping my feet and mandating it, and neither really stuck. So now I'm trying this, and hopefully this will work.
Brilliant. Hey, Daniel, thank you. We've covered a lot of ground, and so have you. And I think
hope it's helpful.
Totally. Absolutely, and I think what is going to be even more helpful is when you and I reconvene in 12 months' time, and see where you've progressed to. In fact, hope my kids aren't listening, but we are planning a trip over your way in about 12 months' time. So
wow.
Don't tell them because so I'd love to maybe meet one day and get into some of that brisket. Daniel,
that would be wonderful.
Love it, mate. Daniel Delaney, thanks for being part of the Small Business Big Marketing Tribe.
Thanks so much.
Oh, I got to tell you, I am hungry. Go and check Daniel's website out, DelaneyBBQ.com, and have a look at the brisket. I reckon it could turn a vegetarian into a carnivore. Don't know, but amazing. Hope you enjoyed that long fireside chat. Here's my top 5 learnings having spoken to Daniel, thanks to Net Registry and the guys at 99designs.com. Number 1, produce helpful content to become a person of influence in your industry. That stuff that Daniel did on YouTube, I'll put links in the show notes to the 2 shows that he had on YouTube. Incredibly good content, and it built his personal brand for sure. Number 2 learning, creating TV quality content is not as hard as we think. The technology today is there. You've got an iPhone or a smartphone in your pocket. That's a good video camera. Mics are cheap. It's about creating good content. The quality will look after itself. Surround yourself with good people to help you do it, like Michelle Bridges talked about last week. Number 3, if you're not being talked about, then you're doing something wrong. I like that. Shake the can, make a noise, get people to notice you. Otherwise, you fade into the background, team. Number 4, move quickly, don't stand still. The more time you spend thinking means you're not taking action. Love that. Great advice. JFDI, as Michelle said last week. And number 5, start to use some of the very cool tools that are out there. And there really are some great tools to help you with your marketing. 99 Designs is an example of that. Net Registry, MailChimp, Asana, LaunchRock, Crazy Egg. These are some of the ones that Daniel mentioned. I'll put a link to all these in the show notes for episode 216 over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com. While you are there, leave a comment. Tell me what you thought of that interview, what your learning was, because that lets me know what you're thinking, what resonates with you. It's also good for your search engine optimization, linking back from my site, huh? Bet you didn't know that. And if you like what Daniel said, hit him up on Twitter and tell him you heard him on the Small Business Big Marketing Show. His Twitter handle is @Daniel Delaney. Righto, motivational marketing quote of the week comes from Bill Gates. I reckon you would have heard of him before. And he has been heard to say, your most unhappy customers are your greatest source of learning. Gotta love that. Hallelujah to that, Bill. Righto, team, that almost brings us to the very end of this episode of Australia's #1 marketing show. I've got some wonderful interviews in the can coming up, including, speaking of in the can, Simon Griffiths from toilet paper brand Who Gives a Crap. Love that. Got some great interviews with young entrepreneurs, really doing inspiring stuff. Amazing little products where they've created a really solid business out of nothing. And just, I'm very excited about all the interviews I've got, and I'll be able to fill you in on how I went on the Great Vic bike ride, because I'm recording this episode before I head off for a 500-kilometre ride with my daughter. Hey, head over into the forum. Crankmymarketing.com is where you will go to join. See you inside to continue the marketing discussion. Big thanks to Net Registry and the guys at 99designs.com/SBBM for your free $99 upgrade. And I reckon that'll just about do us, hey? There's a bit of marketing gold dripping from the headquarters of Small Business Big Marketing today. I've been Timbo Reid, and may your marketing be the best marketing. Bye for now.
You've been listening to the Small Business Big Marketing Show with Tim Reid. Want more marketing goodness? Then visit smallbusinessbigmarketing.com.